ينشد على المحبوب لحد ما ينقضي نحبه، وانا ما ادري محبوبي وانا وتيه الدربه، واعيش ببارد احساسي رغم ما اندعي حبه. واللي يعشق امامه ينشد عليه وفلا تغمض العين، مثل ما نشدت رقي على الحسين. واذا محسوب انك من اهل العشيق لازم تموت إذا عنا تفتري. علمتني رقية، علمتني رقية، إذا تتوسل بمولاك لازم يحضرك، لازم ولو مني الطعن والخيل ما ظل بي عظم سالم. طشت يتعنى لك هلال يفطر قلبك الصايم، ولو ثغر انضرب بالعود تلقاك بثغر باسم. بسمته على ثغره حلوة ما زالت رغم جور الزمان، وابد ما غيرها ضرب الخيزران. قلبك يكون المصابة يحترق، لازم تموت إذا عنا تفترق. علمتني رقية، علمتني رقية، ولو قلبك خراب يصير أبد لا تقطع الظنة، تريد يجيك كون يجيك، ولو بس راس يتعنى مثل بنت الشهيد حسين قضت سفرتها بالونة. اجاها ومن خضب شيبه حمار دمومه مو حنه، نيتك صفيها شوف امامك بالصدق مو بالمنام، يوفقك الله وتحب ايد الامام. وعقب فرقة الجفن ما ينطبق، لازم تموت اذا عنا تفترق. علمتني رقية، علمتني رقية، تقول الراح كون يعود باكر لو عقب باكر، من قد ما تفكر بي لفاه بالحلم زاير الكسر خاطرها لمن جاه يجبر الخاطر، رجع بس حاجبه مطبوع وشيبه مجرب وعافي. عرفته والدها رغم ما خده يبقى بحر الرمال، بس جمال الله
خطوات ناقتها تنشد وين والدها، قبل ما يكون ابوها حسين رقية تشوفه سيدها. إيه ايام فارقها لجن حسبت سنة عذا، إجاه حضنته الطفلة على خدك على خدها، شمته من نحر ماتت وجفها رخى من هالمصاب، من يديها راسه طاح على التراب. عقب الحسين القلب لا ما يدري لازم تموت إذا عنا تفتري. علمتني رباعي
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. If all of my brothers and sisters can fill up all of the seats at the front, if you can all fill up the seats at the front, please. Thank you. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم والعن عدوهم. In the name of Allah, the All-Beneficent, the All-Merciful. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam's mission was a divine one, set for him before the skies were raised and the earth was flattened. Imam al-Hussein did not embark for the sake of a political position. Rather, it was, as he said in his own words, to seek reform in the nation of his grandfather, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alih. Imam al-Hussein's narrative is a religious one. It's the story of a man who sought to return us to God. And thus, it would only be befitting that those who paved the way in Imam al-Hussein's movement were exemplars too by their own choices. Yes, by their own choices destined for triumph. So what can one say of Muslim ibn Aqil, the man who laid the groundwork in the Imam's sacred call? Imam al-Hussein is the one who answers us tonight, as he once did to the faithful in Kufa, stating, I, that is Hussein, I am sending to you my brother, my cousin, my trustee, and the preferred one from my family members, Muslim ibn Aqil. Tonight, my brothers and sisters, at this Never Forget program, live here in Dearborn and across our communities and throughout this nation, we open our hearts to Muslim, greeting our master and the faithful with the greeting of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Let us begin tonight with a recitation of the Holy Quran, recited by Qari Zuhair Husseini, welcoming him with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولله ملك السماوات والأرض والله على كل شيء قدير. إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب. الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم ويتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار. ولله ملك السماوات والأرض والله على كل شيء قدير. إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب الذين يذكرون يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم ويتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار ربنا إنك من تدخل النار فقد أخزيته وما للظالمين من أنصار ربنا إننا سمعنا مناديا ينادي للإيمان ربنا إننا سمعنا مناديا ينادي للإيمان أن آمنوا بربكم فآمنا ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار ربنا وآتنا ما وعدتنا على رسلك ولا تخزنا يوم القيامة إنك لا تخلف الميعاد صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على رسول الله وآله الأطهار، على رسول الله وآله الأطهار. صل على محمد وآل محمد.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. صلي على محمد وآل محمد. I once again encourage all of the brothers and sisters to move up front and fill up all the empty chairs towards the front. That way whoever's joining later throughout the program will be able to join in right away. If I can once again ask all of the brothers and sisters, any empty seat you see in front of you, if you can move up to it, please. Thank you so much. Additionally, there's a red Dodge Caravan outside. The license plate is APN 804. APN 804. If you can move it, please. That's a red Dodge Caravan. The license plate number is 8PN 804. Thank you. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. I want to thank all of the brothers and sisters for wearing their masks and for helping us all stay safe and preserving the safety of everyone here. May Allah bless you. So we've been talking about it throughout the week, and tomorrow is finally the day, inshallah. Tomorrow, the 14th, Saturday the 14th, is Hussein's Service Day, which, as we mentioned, is a day for us to go back out into our communities and give back to our communities, whether it be to our neighbors, to other family members, at an elderly home, at a soup kitchen, in any capacity, in the name of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And it's an all-day event. Take the time to at least do one extra act of kindness in the name of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, and then feel free to share it with us all. And there's 2 hashtags you can post through. One of them is the Hussein Service Day, hashtag HUSAYN Service Day. And the other one is the Be Husseini, BE, and then HUSAYNI. So I encourage all of the brothers and sisters to go out tomorrow and give back to our community in this annual event, in this annual campaign of Hussein Service Day. And not only will we be contributing here in Dearborn, but inshallah throughout the nation. All of those within the campaign will be contributing, inshallah. In addition, another method of contribution alongside your very valued presence and your prayers throughout these nights. And alhamdulillah, we've seen the blessings of Imam al-Hussein in the past days through your presence. It shows through your presence, and inshallah in the continued days. Alongside that, one of the best contributions you could do are your financial contributions, because in the end, this Never Forget program, this family program, is for us all. It's our program. So I encourage all of the brothers and sisters to contribute in any way they're able to, particularly financially, and no matter how much it is, it's appreciated and valued. Really, no matter how much, it's valued. And in particular, for the Never Forget program, we have a nightly share that any of the brothers or sisters can sponsor the program through, and that's a $1,000 share that covers the expenses, all the expenses of the entire program. So that's a $1,000 share, and in any contribution you give, it would be greatly appreciated. And last but not least, if once again, I know you guys can all guess what we're gonna do next. If everyone can pull out their phones once again, please, and text this number 313-264-5655. 4655. 313-264-4655. That's the Mainstay Foundation's number. If you can text this number, your full name and your email address, that way we can have everybody's name on a list for the night in case, God forbid, of a COVID spread. So if everybody can text 313-264-4655 with your full name and your email address. May Allah bless you all. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Of Muslim ibn Aqil alayhi salam's epic we learn tonight with a presentation and elegy by Haj Jalal Mughniye, followed by lamentations or lutmiyat with our dear brothers Hari Samhat, Yusuf Baidoun, and myself. Please help me in welcoming Haj Jalal Mughniye with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
عيد الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. And a third time in love of Muslim ibn Aqil in the loudest of your voices. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Dear Lord, even though my provisions to come close to you are few, my absolute trust is in you. Dear Lord, even though my provisions to come to you are few, my absolute trust in you has given me great expectations about you. And even if I am frightened by your punishment for the sins that I have committed, my hope in you has given me that deep feeling of security. And even if my sins have exposed me to your penalties, my complete trust in you has reminded me of your rewards. And if negligence has put me to sleep and unaware of that day that I will meet you, my awareness of your generosity and blessings have alerted me once again. And if my excessive disobedience and rebellion against you have distanced me from you, the glad tidings of forgiveness have made me feel an intimate closeness to you, Ya Allah. So I ask you by the pure light of your face. So I ask you, Allah, by the pure light of your face and the light of your holiness, I beg you by the kindness and mercy that is with you, by your grace and your virtue, Ya Allah, to realize my hope in your great generosity and your wonderful favors. Through the nearness to you, I ask you, allow me to experience the sweetness of gazing at you. So here I am, my Lord, exposing myself to the breezes of your mercy and your grace, having the opportunity to feel the raindrops of your generosity and your kindness. Ya Allah, I am fleeing from your anger straight to your pleasure. Ya Allah, I am fleeing from you back to you. I am fleeing from you back to you, hoping to receive from the best of your treasures, relying upon your loving gifts, utterly reliant on your protection and guardianship. Ya Allah, please complete the favors and blessings on me that you have started, and do not take away the generous gifts that you have granted to me, Ya Allah. Tear not away what you have covered over me through your clemency, and forgive my bad deeds, which you very well know of. Ya Allah, I ask you to be my intercessor to you. Ya Allah, I ask you to be my intercessor to you, and I ask you to be my shelter from your own anger. I ask you, Ya Allah, to be my shelter from your anger, for I have come to you craving your beneficence, desiring your kindness, Ya Allah. I am seeking the water of generosity from the overflow of your grace, begging for rain from the clouds of your bounty, requesting from your pleasure, Ya Allah. I am going straight to your side, and I am arriving at the watering place of your care, seeking glorious virtues from your quarter, reaching out for the presence of your beauty, desiring to see your face, knocking at your door, abasing myself before you, before your might and your majesty, Ya Allah. So I ask you, I plead with you, I beseech you, Ya Allah, act towards me with the forgiveness and mercy of which you are worthy, and act not towards me with the punishment and vengeance for which I am worthy. By your mercy, O most merciful. Salawat. Brothers and sisters, please carry the Holy Quran in your right hand with me tonight. I see my brothers and sisters, some of you have had the courage to bring the Quran with you. Please, if you have a copy of the Holy Quran, raise it really high, so that the rest of us can see it. And if you don't have a copy of the Holy Quran with you, raise your hand, your right hand very high. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. In these majalis, our awaited Imam, Al-Hujjah Al-Muntadhar, Al-Imam Al-Mahdi, is a witness to these majalis. If you wish your Imam to see you in the best of your presence, in the best light that you could possibly be seen, have the pure intention of raising your hand so that the Imam sees you. I don't want you to be thinking about me seeing you right now. What I see does not matter. What the Imam sees, and ultimately what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees of you, is what matters the most. So raise your hand with that intention. Raise your hand with that intention. Ya Allah. Ya Allah. Allah is my Lord. Allah is my Lord. Allah is my Lord. The Quran is my book. The Quran is my book. I can't hear you. The Quran is my book. Islam is my religion. Islam is my religion. Islam is my religion. Muhammad is my prophet. Muhammad is my prophet. Muhammad is my prophet. Ali is my Imam. Ali is my Imam. Ali is my Imam. Ahsantum, salawat. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب. والحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful, we ask Allah to send His greatest peace and blessings upon Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We praise Allah for all the blessings He has given us, and the greatest blessing being that He allowed us to be of the ones who remain steadfast, dedicated, and loyal on the path of our Master after the Prophet, the commander of the faithful, the prince of the believers, the protector of the Prophet and his message, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. We praise Allah for this blessing and every blessing, for without Allah we would have nothing. Assalamu alaikum, my dear respected brothers and sisters, wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Holy Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 115. To Allah belongs the east and the west. And wherever you turn your faces, there is the face of God. Wherever you may turn, there is the face of God. To Allah belongs the east and the west. Wherever you go, brothers and sisters, in this life, no matter where you go, God is there. Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, in this whispered prayer, in Munajat al-Raghibin, the whispered prayer of the beseechers, those who beseech, he has a beautiful line that is also mentioned in his dua as well, in Dua Abi Hamza Thumali. These supplications from Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, if you really want to take from Ashura, make it a habit to read these supplications. How long did it take us to read the supplication tonight? 3 minutes. Not even. Every night, these short supplications that we're beginning with, if you feel that you want to get closer to God, use the words of the Imam to gain closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because no one is closer to Allah than the Imam. He knows how to speak to God. And he's telling you, my beloved follower, my beloved servant, you wish to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You wish to follow? You want to see how to talk to God? These are the words. This is the prescription. Use it. Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, in this supplication, and in Dua Abi Hamza, a supplication that he taught to his companion, Abu Hamza Thumali, who had the honor of taking the supplication from the Imam and then sharing it with other people. And he made it a part of his own life. And that he was honored with this supplication being named after him. Similar to the supplication of Dua Kumail ibn Ziyad. Dua Kumail ibn Ziyad was a supplication taught by Imam Ali to his companion Kumail. He had the honor of the supplication being named after him. Same. There's a line that says, أَنَا هَارِبٌ مِنْكَ إِلَيْكَ. Think about this for a moment. I want you to take a moment of reflection. Look deep into your heart. Take this moment with Imam Zayn al-Abidin as he teaches us this line in speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want you to take this. هَارِبٌ مِنْكَ إِلَيْكَ. Ya Allah, I am fleeing from you back to you. There's no escaping God. You go as far as you want to go from God, you're only going back to Him. This should be, if you don't realize it right now, realize it tonight. God is everywhere and in each and every one of us. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We belong to God and to Him we return is not something merely about death, an ultimate truth and reality that we all have to acknowledge and humble ourselves with. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un is life itself, because there is no life without God. Nothing is without God. That is the reality. The oppressor and the oppressed. And the day of Ashura, everything that took place was by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. God gave us the free will to act, to do, to behave. The life that we lead is by our own choice. Who gave you that agency? Allah. So even the individuals that go and oppress and have their misdeeds, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows them to do that. Showing what? Your responsibility. The consequences you will bear. Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam says, pleasures fade away, but the consequences will stay. These hands that you have, these legs that you have, the feet that you walk with, to come to this majlis, to gain these good deeds, to come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to return to God, This is all by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowing you to come. But you can also use these hands, these feet, this tongue, these eyes to disobey Him, to move away from Him, to go far away from God. But the reality is, no matter how far you go, you're going back to Him. Not merely in the grave. Life itself is a constant turning back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And He gives us chance after chance and opportunity after opportunity to see how can we be our best selves and truly return with Him, return to Him and be with Him. So, أَنَا هَارِبٌ مِنْكَ إِلَيْكَ يَا Allah. I am running away from you, fleeing from you, only to go back to you. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, in 680 AD, going back to this year, when he left Medina and arrived in Mecca, he came with his caravan, his family, his friends, his sons, his brothers, those who accompanied him on this trip. When he came to Mecca, it was about 4 to 5 months before Muharram. I want you to keep this context in mind. He didn't go from Medina to Mecca and then leave 2 weeks later. He went to Mecca and he arrived, if you're looking at the Gregorian calendar, around May. He stayed there until about September. He left in Dhul Hijjah, the month immediately before Muharram. And the journey towards Karbala was something that took a couple weeks. The journey of going from Mecca and landing in Karbala. When Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam was in Mecca, he was there for about 4 to 5 months. When he was in Mecca, the governor of Mecca went to go see him immediately. Soon as he realized that al-Hussein ibn Ali was in Mecca, he had to go see him and find out, what does he have planned? What is he trying to do in his city? The governor of Mecca, his name was Amr ibn Sa'id ibn al-As, also known as Al-Ashdaq. So Al-Ashdaq, let's learn a little bit about him. Who is he? Al-Ashdaq is also an Umayyad. So some in history will refer to him as Al-Ashdaq al-Umawi. Al-Ashdaq was a nephew of who? Marwan ibn al-Hakam. Remember Marwan that we talked about? Al-Hakam, his father who was exiled by the Prophet. Marwan would be the individual to challenge Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam in Medina and tell him, hey, Hussein, you have to give allegiance to Yazid. And kind of set the tone with him. And Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam put him in check. Imam Hussein alayhi salam leaves, goes to Mecca, then is now greeted by who? Al-Ashdaq al-Amawi, Amr ibn Sa'id ibn al-As. Amr ibn Sa'id, the nephew of Marwan ibn al-Hakam, his mother was Marwan's sister. When he came to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, no salam, no greeting, nothing. Hussein, what has brought you to Mecca? Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, simply the sanctuary of Allah and to be close to His house. He scoffs, leaves. He goes and he writes a letter to Yazid and tells him, listen, Hussein is in Mecca. I'm watching his movement. I see what's going on. More and more followers are coming around Hussein. He's going to cause problems to us Umayyads. You need to do something now. Mind you, Yazid, what does he do in the situation? He writes a letter to Abdullah ibn al-Abbas. Remember in previous nights we mentioned Al-Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib and Hamza ibn Abdul Muttalib. These are uncles of the Prophet. Abdullah ibn al-Abbas is a cousin of Imam Ali and a cousin of Prophet Muhammad. Abdullah ibn al-Abbas is a companion of the Prophet, was a companion of Imam Ali alayhi salam, was one who even served in the government of Imam Ali alayhi salam. And many of our narrations, both across the texts of the Shia and the Sunni schools, narrate from Abdullah ibn al-Abbas. Abdullah ibn al-Abbas receives this letter from Yazid. Yazid writes a letter to Abdullah telling him, listen, I know that your cousin Hussein and the enemy of Allah, Ibn Zubayr, Abdullah ibn Zubayr, have come to Mecca. Abdullah ibn Zubayr, we will have him killed if he does not pay allegiance to us and stop what he's doing. But Al-Hussein, we wish him well. Please, try to find a way to advise him, to stop him from his movement and what he's doing. And we will guarantee anything that he wishes. In fact, I will give him the same guarantees that my father Muawiyah gave to his brother Al-Hassan. Just have him stop this nonsense. Let him not forget that we have ties. Are we not relatives? Are we not family? Mind you, these ties that he's speaking of, because people are like, what do you mean? Aren't they Banu Umayyah? Aren't they the one he's talking about? Abu Sufyan, Marwan ibn al-Hakam, Muawiyah, Yazid, Amr ibn Sa'id ibn al-As, al-Ashdaq. Aren't they all Banu Umayyah? Yes, those are Banu Umayyah, this tribe of Umayyah. Banu Hashim, the tribe of the Prophet, so think the Prophet, Imam Ali, Abdullah ibn al-Abbas, al-Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib, Hamza, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, all Banu Hashim. Banu Hashim and Banu Umayyah are still part of the greater tribe of Quraysh. So, there are blood relations between these two clans, if you will. The clan of Banu Hashim and the clan of Banu Umayyah all do belong to the greater tribe of Quraysh. So Yazid in this letter to Abdullah ibn al-Abbas is trying to tell him, listen, why is Hussein trying to take away from our family ties? Why is he trying to cause problems within the tribe? Tell him to stop this nonsense. I'm looking out for him. Yazid, Abdullah ibn Abbas sees between his lines. He reads between the lines in the letter. Look at the response of Abdullah ibn Abbas to Yazid. He tells him, I've received your letter. I've seen that you've spoken at length about Ibn Zubayr and of Hussein ibn Ali. Ibn Zubayr, we have nothing to do with him. We know his own selfish pursuits and we're not connected to him. As for Hussein ibn Ali, he has informed me of what your agents and your officials in Medina did to him and the harassment that they caused him in Medina. So he has come to Mecca to seek sanctuary in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to be with us here. I will share your concerns with him. But I tell you, O Yazid, the following. Fear Allah. Fear Allah and do not bring oppression upon the people. Observe your fast. Observe your prayers. And he goes into some more detail. It's amazing because when you're looking at this exchange, Yazid gets kind of upset. Why? Because Abdullah is basically telling him, listen, who are you trying to fool? We all know who you are. You're coming and you're telling us you're going to give Hussein ibn Ali guarantees. We know what you're trying to do. Before you come and talk about Hussein ibn Ali and trying to put him in a different space, go pray. Go fast. Go watch for people's rights. You're not in the position that you're supposed to be in. This is the Khilafah. So Yazid doesn't like Abdullah ibn Abbas's response. What does he do? He goes and he contacts Amr ibn Sa'id ibn al-As, al-Ashdaq, his governor in Mecca, and he tells him that I need you to replace al-Walid ibn Utbah, who was the governor in Medina. Why? Because now more movement was taking place in Medina. People knew Imam Hussein alayhi salam left Medina, went to Mecca. What's going on? People are starting to realize, oh, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam did not give allegiance to Yazid. And they wanted to follow suit. So more movement was taking place in Medina and even across the Ummah. War in Iraq. Inshallah, tomorrow we're going to talk a little bit more about that. About what was happening in Iraq and especially in Kufa. So, Al-Walid ibn Utbah, who was not considered to be effective by what Yazid wanted to take place in Medina, because remember, his exchange with Marwan ibn al-Hakam, they brought Imam Hussein alayhi salam to the governor's house, Walid ibn Utbah, and he let him go the night, in the middle of the night. Imam Hussein alayhi salam in the following days would go to Mecca. They didn't think he was effective, so he would replace Walid ibn Utbah with Al-Ashdaq. Al-Ashdaq was a tyrant in his own right. The first thing that Al-Ashdaq does when he comes into Medina is he has all the people of Medina gathered in Masjid Rasulullah in the Prophet's mosque. He ascends the pulpit. He's dressed from head to toe in silk, red silk. Something very unsightly. Something that, like, who is this guy? What is he doing? This is not something that the people of Medina were used to. Now the Umayyads, remember, their center of power was in Damascus. The way the Syrians did things at that time under the tradition of Muawiyah was different than what the people of Hijaz, the people of Medina and Mecca were used to. But at the same time, the Umayyads had their people in Mecca and Medina. Walid ibn Utbah couldn't do the job. Yazid had him deposed, taken out of power. Al-Ashdaq comes in, ascends the pulpit of Rasulullah, sits on the pulpit, and has the people watching him. He takes a moment, he looks at everyone. Everyone's just looking at him like, not knowing what's going to happen. He says, "O people of Medina, why do you all look at me like this as if you wish to kill me? Let me tell you what's going to take place. Let me tell you what the reality of the situation is. I know who you are. You thought that under the reign of Uthman, a few decades before, Uthman ruled from 644 to 656. Uthman, the people of Medina rebelled against him. His khilafah was in Medina. The people of Medina rebelled against him. Uthman was killed in his own home after being besieged in his home for several days. He says, you think that you can do what you did with Uthman, a leader who was kind to you, who was old, who let you have your concerns and your grievances and allowed you to voice them, but you turned on him and you killed him. Know that Yazid is not like him. Know that Yazid is full of life and youthfulness. Know that Yazid wishes to expand his dominion, and he has set me upon you to ensure that you know your place. So people of Medina, know your place." Because of the intensity of his speech, the narrations in history say that Al-Ashdaq began bleeding from his nose. So when he was bleeding from his nose, he touched his nose and he saw the blood. Someone from below threw a turban to him. He took the turban and he started wiping his nose. Some of the people that saw that gasped. They heard that this was a bad omen, this was a bad sign. And one person, in fact, one of the men called out, he said, "This is a sign of our times, that a turban, that blood would be spilled on a turban on the pulpit of Rasulullah." Al-Ashdaq didn't care, he didn't pay any heed. The Umayyads didn't care. Al-Ashdaq didn't care. He didn't want to hear about a bad sign. He didn't want to hear about the prophetic tradition. He didn't want to hear about the etiquettes of ascending upon the pulpit of the Prophet. He did not care. All that they had in mind was dominion. Mind you, Al-Ashdaq would be one who actually wanted the caliphate. If you look into history, years later, he would be one who would actually challenge Marwan ibn al-Hakam's son, Abdul Malik, who would become the 5th caliph. Again, what did these people want? Look at the context, look at the history. Each of these individuals that came, they're looking at the influence, the power that they can gain, that they can have. So they didn't care about ethics. They didn't care about right or wrong. It was pure dominion. When you look at the challenges that were faced at that time, take it back to that. Why did this individual do this? Why did they not pay heed to what was being said? He literally sat at the pulpit of the Prophet and was telling the people of Medina, watch how Yazid is going to crush you. So this was the situation now in Medina, which Imam Hussein alayhi salam was away, he was in Mecca. While in Mecca, Abdullah ibn al-Abbas and Abdullah ibn Umar, the son of the 2nd caliph, Umar ibn al-Khattab, come and visit Imam Hussein alayhi salam. They have a conversation with Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, and you can see the dynamic between Abdullah ibn al-Abbas with Imam al-Hussein and Abdullah ibn Umar with Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Abdullah ibn Umar was a little more persistent with the Imam to basically tell him, Hussein, you need to stop what you're doing. Everyone was getting nervous because they knew the Umayyads were tyrants like no other. They seen it with Muawiyah. And they seen the governors of Mecca, Medina, Kufa, etc., the ones that were at the hands of the Umayyads. So in this conversation, Abdullah ibn al-Abbas and Abdullah ibn Umar go back and forth with Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam and are exchanging different ideas and thoughts. I want you to think a little bit about Imam al-Hussein's position. He is sitting down, respectfully listening to their opinions. Sitting down with them, hearing them out. Even Abdullah ibn Umar, the narrations tell us that in his exchange with the Imam, at one point he says, enough. We need to stop this. You can't carry on with this. The Umayyads, they will have your life. Imam Hussein alayhi salam tells Abdullah ibn Umar, oh Abdullah, do you see me in this light? Do you see me to be so far from truth? If you truly see me to be far from truth, say it. He's put in check. Look at the eloquence of the Imam. Not scolding him, even though his approach was not necessarily the best. Abdullah ibn Umar takes a step back. Ibn al-Abbas tells the Imam, we're just concerned. The Imam begins laying out and saying, do you realize what they're doing to me? Do you realize what's happening here? Do you know any other grandson of the Prophet who holds this message and is responsible for the religion of God as I am? Abdullah ibn Abbas says, no, by Allah, we don't know anybody like you. He says, do you not see what they're doing to me? Do you not see the position that they're putting me in? Look at the patience of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam over all these years, seeing everything that they went through. Again, let's provide a little bit more context. Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, from the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi in 632 AD, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam is 5-6 years old. He's a child. In 632 AD, the Prophet passes away. Imam Ali alayhi salam is ignored and pushed to the side. The first caliph comes, rules for 2 years. The second caliph comes, rules for a decade, 10 years. The third caliph comes. Mind you, the first caliph appointed the second caliph. The second caliph brought a shura, a council, before he died. 6 people. Amongst these 6, you are to elect amongst yourself who is going to be the Khalifa after me. And if you don't make a decision within you 6, then you will all be killed. The third caliph comes, Uthman ibn Affan, rules for 12 years. Uthman, like we said earlier, in Medina, is killed. His house is besieged. He's assassinated. The people are like, man, this has been really messed up all this time. Let's go to somebody that's going to be able to take care of the situation for us now. 24, 25 years after the death of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, who suffered the loss of the Prophet, who suffered within months the loss of his beloved wife Fatimah al-Zahra alayhi salam after her house was violated. 25 years later, they come to him. Imam Ali alayhi salam, like we mentioned in previous nights, says, I've only assumed the caliphate to establish truth and fight against falsehood. Imam Ali alayhi salam rules for less than 5 years. Context again. Imam Hassan alayhi salam, after the assassination of Imam Ali alayhi salam in 661, Imam Hassan becomes the Khalifa. 6 months, abdicates to Muawiyah with the peace accord in order to protect the nation, protect the ummah. Muawiyah rules for 18 years. Then Yazid comes into power into 680 AD. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam witnessed all of this. Now Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam is in his 50s. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam is 53 years old. He witnessed all of this. Lady Zainab alayhi salam was just a bit younger than Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. She witnessed all of this. So when you see and hear the story of Ashura, you have to see it through their eyes, examining this entire history and knowing its context. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam knew the Umayyads. He grew up with it. He saw them grow. He saw their influence. He saw what happened. But when it came to Yazid, why did al-Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam make his firm stance? مثلي لا يبايع مثله. Someone like me does not give allegiance to someone like him. They crossed the line. It was too far. In order for the faith to be protected, because that was the absolute aim of Ahlul Bayt, is to protect the religion of Islam, to protect La ilaha illallah. So when you're looking at history and trying to understand why did Ahlul Bayt choose this path or choose this path? Why did Imam Ali alayhi salam not fight against those who assumed the caliphate instead of him to protect Islam and protect the community of Islam? Why did Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam choose to have a peace accord and abdicate, allow Muawiyah to ascend the Khilafah to protect Islam and the community of Islam, the believers? Why did al-Hussein alayhi salam say no to Yazid to protect Islam? That's the theological framework when you're looking at history and understanding the movement of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. So now, when we find ourselves coming to Muslim, who inshallah in the coming nights, I want to try as much as possible to give more and more context to understand these movements, to understand these different positions. When Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam was in Mecca, there was also communication coming from Iraq, coming from Kufa. Letters were being sent to him. These letters that were being sent to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, they were telling him, come to us. We wish for you to lead us against this tyrant, against this oppression. We are thousands here waiting for you. Come and aid us, O Imam. So when Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam was looking at Abdullah ibn al-Abbas and Abdullah ibn Umar, he said, I will stay in Mecca, in the sanctuary of God, until I hear further of those who are willing to support us. So at one point, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam decides to send, with all of these letters coming, decides to send an ambassador to Iraq to really check and see the situation. What was going on? What was happening? Our narrations say that over 12,000 letters were received by Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam through a series of caravans, through a series of messengers. Those letters that Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam carried with him to Iraq. And at one point, inshallah we'll talk more about it, when he has that meeting with Hur, when Hur stops him outside of Kufa, near the land of Karbala, Imam Hussein alayhi salam tells him, do you know the letters? You are the people that send us the letters to come to this land. Hur said, I don't know about any letters. He instructs one of his men, he says, go and bring the letters. There are basically duffel bags in our day, right? Huge bags of letters that he puts in front of al-Hur. Imam Hussein alayhi salam sent Muslim ibn Aqil to Kufa. Muslim ibn Aqil comes to Kufa. He is welcomed to Kufa like a hero. And everyone is chanting, Hussein, we are here for Hussein. We will never let down Hussein. So Muslim ibn Aqil, when he comes to Kufa and he sees literally 18,000 people waiting to follow Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam and welcome him, he writes a letter back to Imam al-Hussein saying, Imam, come forth. The people are waiting for you. So he examined the situation. There was nothing about Kufa that told Muslim ibn Aqil that this was not a good place for the Imam to come to. Muslim ibn Aqil Narrations say that he sent Abis. Those of you who remember on the day of Ashura, Abis al-Shakiri, the one who is famously quoted to have said, when he let down his shield, he let down his armor, and he attacked the enemy with his bare hands, he would say, in response to the people saying, Abis, have you gone insane? He said, حب الحسين أجنني. Imagine the pain of Abis. You know who brought the letter to Imam al-Hussein from Musab ibn Aqil? Who rode his horse as fast as he could and delivered the letter to Musab ibn Aqil. Some narrations tell us it was Abis who told Imam al-Hussein with this letter to come to Kufa. So when he says, حب الحسين أجنني, if I tell you this tale of sorrow, will you lend me your hearts to borrow? Will you shed a tear for Hussein? Will you remember Zainab's pain? And if we stay here tonight until tomorrow, will you bear this tale of sorrow? Listen here to Hussein's story, a story of heartache and glory, a story of heartache and glory. Brothers and sisters, when we look at the story of Muslim ibn Aqil, the ambassador of Imam al-Hussein, Imam al-Hussein had sent Muslim to see the situation in Kufa. Muslim had been greeted by thousands of warriors saying that they will give their life for Imam al-Hussein. They all paid allegiance at the hands of Muslim. They were all ready to give their lives. Muslim ibn Aqil sends a letter with Abis to tell Imam al-Hussein to come to Kufa. Imam al-Hussein in Mecca, when he receives this letter from Abis, he makes his way to the lands of Iraq. But as Imam al-Hussein is on his way, the situation would change in Kufa, and little by little, the people would move away from Muslim. Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad was now in Kufa, selected as the governor to rule over the people by Yazid. As Muslims people, as Muslim supporters dwindled in numbers, Muslim ibn Aqil would find himself lonely in the land of Kufa. Muslim ibn Aqil would find himself one of the nights knocking on the door of a pious woman named Tawa. He would knock on her door. She would tell him, "Oh man, it is late in the night. What do you want? What do you wish?" He said, "I have nowhere to go." The narrations tell us that Muslim, after telling her who he was, she welcomed him into her home. But she had a son who did not have the same piety. As soon as he found out that this was Muslim, the one who was wanted by the Umayyads, by the authorities, that were taking the followers of Hussein one by one, that were blackmailing people, that were throwing them into prison, that were killing some of them off, he sought a reward with Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad and went to the Umayyad governor and told him that Muslim ibn Aqil was in his mother's house, The following day, they surrounded the house and they called out Muslim to come from inside. Muslim would not give up. He would not turn himself in until he fought valiantly against these soldiers that had surrounded the house. Dozens, hundreds of soldiers were surrounding Muslim until finally, after hours, Muslim would fall. They would take him in chains, bloodied in the face, bloodied in the mouth. They would take him, this son of Aqil, this man from Banu Hashim. He would find himself now before the Umayyad governor, who would tell him that you will be punished for your actions against Yazid. Are there any last words for you? Muslim ibn Aqil, all that he had on his mind was Hussein. All that he wanted in those moments was Hussein. After asking for a few things, the third thing that he asked was, please send word to my beloved master Hussein not to come to this land, not to come to Kufa. They told him, oh Muslim, we will not answer any of these requests. Brothers and sisters, Muslim ibn Aqil was taken from the governor's courtyard to the rooftop of the palace. And Muslim, they took him, they beheaded him, with his final words being thoughts of an Imam al-Hussein. They beheaded Muslim and they threw his body from the rooftop. They took the body of Muslim and tied it to the horses, and they had his decapitated body dragged across Kufa so all the people would see, if you dare to fight against Yazid, if you dare to fight against Banu Umayyah, this will be your fate. This will be what will happen to you. Brothers and sisters, when Muslim's head was taken and paraded across Kufa, some of the companions of Muslim managed to escape, managed to find a way out of Kufa and join the caravan of an Imam al-Hussein that had left Mecca and made its way to Iraq. Brothers and sisters, I want you to imagine the scene with me as Imam al-Hussein receives the news that his cousin, his ambassador Muslim ibn Aqil, has been killed. I want you to imagine the heart of the Imam as he receives this news. Does he keep it from his companions? Does he keep it from his followers that have joined the caravan? No, the Imam wants them to know. The Imam wants them to realize, what is this movement that he's on? Where is he going? He's not going to seek glory and dominion. He's not going to rule over people. The Imam is going to give his own life. So he tells his followers, his family, his friends, and those people that had joined on the way, when they left Mecca, they were on this caravan, on this road to the lands of Iraq. He tells the people, Muslim ibn Aqil has been killed, my ambassador has been killed, my cousin has been killed. So I tell you, each of you, if you wish not to keep with me, if you wish not to join me in this fate that I'm going to face, then leave. I give you permission to leave. And Imam al-Hussein is telling his people to leave. Don't stay with me. He gives them some time to consider. He takes a few steps away, and who does he find? It is said Imam al-Hussein would find Hamida, the daughter of Muslim ibn Aqil, that was with them in the caravan from Mecca to Iraq. Hamida comes to Imam al-Hussein and she tells him, my dear uncle Hussein, is there any news from my father Muslim? I miss him so much. Do you have any news about my father Muslim? And Imam al-Hussein, in his broken heart, he looks at Hamida and he tells her, my dear, I am your father now. Oh Hamida, I am your father now. Imam al-Hussein holds Hamida, understanding now that her father Muslim is gone. She cries out, Abata, oh father, where have you gone? Oh father, have you orphaned me now? Oh father Muslim. And Imam al-Hussein is crying with his knees. He's crying, she's crying. I am your father now, dear Hamida. Imam al-Hussein, in this caravan of sorrow, these were the beginnings of the tragedies. Muslim ibn Aqil, as the first martyr in the way of Imam al-Hussein, his blood would not go in vain. The tears of Hamida would not go in vain. The orphan children of Karbala would not go in vain. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. Brothers and sisters, take your tears with Hamida and direct yourself in calling out to her father Muslim.
Brothers and sisters, please join us in commemorating. Stand at your seats. We'll begin the Latmiya. Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim,
Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim. Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim. Together. Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim. Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim.
Hussein's trusty and brother, fierce and brave like no other. His role told by the Prophet, for it no one was more fit. From this home he would marry, adding honor and glory. From this home he would marry, adding honor and glory.
Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim. Together. Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim.
In Safina commander, refined he stood in grandeur. So when Hassan sheathed the swords, he did not make to his words. A pious man of prayer, God's rights he'd attend with care. A pious man of prayer, God's rights he'd attend with care.
Ya Muslim, 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 Ya Muslim.
Thus it came with no surprise, Hussein chose him when he'd rise. Thus it came with no surprise, Hussein chose him when he'd rise. To Kufa he'd be sent out, across a difficult route. Its soldiers he would collect, and with tribes he would connect. Its soldiers he would collect, and with tribes he would connect.
Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim. Louder. Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim.
This was a garrison town whose faithful would not back down. This was a garrison town whose faithful would not back down. Yet much of them were removed because evil they'd refused. Yet much of them were removed because evil they'd refused. Here too were mercenaries, only loyal to money. Here too were mercenaries, only loyal to money.
Ya Muslim, 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 Ya Muslim.
As in it were many groups, in secret he gathered troops. As in it were many groups, in secret he gathered troops. Hani, Habib and Abis, Hani, Habib and Abis, thousands with him seen their bliss. Hani, Habib and Abis, thousands with him seen their bliss. Hani, Habib and Abis,
Thousands with him seen their bliss.
So Muslim wrote to Hussein, hear your cause begun to reign. So Muslim wrote to Hussein, hear your cause begun to reign.
Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim,
Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim. When Yazid heard what happened, his face with anger darkened. When Yazid heard what happened, his face with anger darkened. He sent a man who would rule with no mercy, the most cruel. He sent a man that would rule with no mercy, the most cruel. Hussein told Muslim, rise and stand. Now he'd act on what they'd planned. Hussein told Muslim, rise and stand. Now he'd act on what they'd planned. Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, together. Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim. Thousands rose at Muslim's side, calling out with so much pride. Thousands rose at Muslim's side, calling out with so much pride. Some to Karbala he'd send, for when battle would impend. Some to Karbala he'd send, for when battle would impend. Yazid they tried to weaken, many were thrown in prison. Yazid they tried to weaken, many were thrown in prison. Ya Muslim, 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 Ya Muslim. Brave men in the streets were killed. Brave men in the streets were killed. Muslims' heart with pain was filled. Brave men in the streets were killed. Muslims' heart with pain was filled. So he'd hide in Taw'a's home. So he'd hide in Taw'a's home. Wounded, struck, and all alone. So he'd hide in Taw'a's home. Wounded, struck, and all alone. Muslim thrown from the palace. Bin Ziyad bore such malice. Muslim thrown from the palace. Bin Ziyad bore such malice. Ya Muslim, 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 Ya Muslim. All he'd think of was Hussein. 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 Like him thirsty in such pain. All he'd think of was Hussein. Like him thirsty in such pain. Hamida now an orphan. Hamida now an orphan. Hamida now an orphan, her tragedy would worsen. Hamida now an orphan, her tragedy would worsen. Hussein called her his daughter. Hussein called her his daughter. Akh ya Hamida. But soon him too they'd slaughter. Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim with Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim, Ya Muslim. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي
ابن الحسين
وعلى
أولاد الحسين
وعلى أصحاب الحسين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك
عليه وعلى آبائه
في هذه الساعة وفي كل
ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. May Allah reward you all, my brothers and sisters. Thank you all for joining, and we look forward to seeing you all tomorrow, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Habibi Hajj.